idea that all life is interconnected is an enduring spiritual tradition. Now, one group of scientists think advances in computer technology may help them to prove it exists and react to major events worldwide. And this computer, and the small box attached, codenamed the Egg, might hold the answer.
It was a program that started in about 1979 in the engineering school at Princeton, run by Robert John and managed by Brenda Dunn. I came in 1980 and spent 22 years there before I retired, doing things that sound a little strange to people, but which are actually quite important when we're thinking about consciousness. What happens at the edges of what we know about with consciousness? Is there any real presence of consciousness in the physical world? So we set up experiments to ask that question and got an answer, which is yes. Not a big surprise to people who are interested in spiritual matters, but a terribly difficult thing for most mainstream scientists to accept or themselves take any time really to examine. In 1997, I started doing something which turned into what we now call the Global Consciousness Project, which is looking at the entire world in a way, using our same kind of technology we developed in the lab, but now to look at a kind of non-local consciousness that appears to be a real presence in the world.
For 5 years, Roger Nelson has been running the Global Consciousness Project. He collects data from what are called random event generators. 75 standalone computers have been set up around the world. They produce continuous random combinations of numbers that are sent back to Princeton. Nelson monitors the machines, looking for any unusual deviations in the data.
REG machines, random event generators, are electronic tosses of the coin.
One type of random number generator experiment that's been conducted many times, hundreds of times, over the past 4 decades or so, since around the 1960s, has been a random generator that only produces sequences of random bits, zeros and ones, like flipping coins. And you would simply ask somebody to press a button, it would produce 200 bits. And you would ask them to say, well, try to make it produce more 1 bits than 0 bits. And when you take the entire body of literature, all of the hundreds of experiments that have been done, you can ask a single question. Did it matter that people were trying to push it towards ones or push it towards zeros? And the overall answer is yes, it does matter. That somehow intention is correlated with the operation, with the output of these random number generators, such that if you wish for more ones, somehow the generators produce more 1.
A true coin has a 50-50 probability of being heads or tails, and you can't predict it if it's thrown properly. So electronic random number generators do that properly. They flip coins, so to speak, high speed, produce a lot of ones and zeros or a lot of heads and tails, and you cannot predict the sequence at all.
Nelson's machines are as close to pure chance as it's possible to get, so a regular pattern should be very unusual. So when they do show up, the team is convinced that something very extraordinary is happening. Dean Radin from the Institute of Noetic Science worked with the project. He also believes that global consciousness must exist. He set up the network of eggs around the globe and thinks they hold the key to unlocking this mystery.
They called it originally the EGG, for electrogaiagram, which is an analogy to electroencephalogram, the EEG. In other words, we want a bunch of sensors around the brain of the planet to see if we can find patterns in exactly the same way that we look at patterns that go on in the brain.
The aim is to see if human responses to world events can influence their output. Anyone who works closely with machines knows how temperamental they can be. But how can remote computers without operators interact with human minds? Nelson admits he doesn't know how it happens, but he's certain it takes place.
Today, there are over 60 random event generators placed around the world. The numbers that come into the generators during normal random events for global consciousness are just that, random. Several hours in advance of a major world event, non-random, coherent numbers are present. A large spike in the data waveform appears, giving a precognition that a major event is about to occur.
If something like Princess Diana's funeral,
Real quick, like intuition. It's picking up on our intuition, like, hey, something just doesn't feel right here. We should leave. And the thing is, it's like, if we leave, then it's just like we're kind of speculating. But if something happens and freaking people survive, it's like, yeah, freaking your intuition was right. We gotta listen to ourselves. We know what we're doing. And if we can just clear out the noise.
was bringing 2 billion people to think about the same thing and maybe feel sadness or compassion together, that we should try to see whether our machines, our random event generators, could detect that, could react to it. So in that particular case, I asked all of my colleagues and friends who did the same kind of research, please take data. We had several lines of data in Europe, several lines of data in this country, put them all together, and remarkably enough, or maybe not so surprising if you believe the data from the laboratory experiments, we have a big, strong effect. If you did the same thing 100 times, you wouldn't see the size of change in our REG devices that we saw during the time of the funeral for Princess Diana.
The September 6, 1997 funeral of Princess Diana yielded a major signal in the data. Global compassion following tragedy of major world figures or world loss of life yielded the strongest spikes in the data.
New York, September the 11th, 2001. The tragedy unfolding will change the world forever. 50 kilometers away at Princeton University, the gauges of Dr. Roger Nelson's EGG machine are going berserk.
Before the actual crash occurred, before about 9 o'clock, I knew nothing. I was happy-go-lucky. I was writing letters how the world was peaceful, right? Well, the world was not peaceful, and already the data, before I knew anything about it, the data were changing.
On the morning of September the 11th, 2001, as the American Airlines flight left Logan International Airport, the computers appeared to do something extraordinary.
Four days before September 11th, where the eggs were just doing what they normally do, nothing. They were wandering randomly. And then all of a sudden, on September 11th, there's a trend that takes off, which is extremely unusual.
The random event generators began to synchronize, overriding the laws of chance. Could this have been connected to the attacks?
We have now 5 years of data, and on 2 or 3 of the measures, this 9/11 outcome is unique. There's nothing else like it in the database.
News of the catastrophe flashed round the world, and the world stood in shock. Could this surge of emotion explain the mysterious data?
We're focusing our energy, our attention. You see, the power of attention, or the power of thought. Psychic energy. It's proven. It's not freaking. I mean, like, we're still learning it and stuff. But I mean, how long did it take before we understood electricity? Right? Natural laws. And the thing is that some of the original laws, they're obsolete. Yet we're still working with them because people are stuck in a rut, or they're just trying to control the amount of information, the amount of technology, the amount of they're governing governing ourselves, not just through government and control, mentality. They're not just controlling us from political views. It's because there's politics in workplace politics. They happen everywhere. And the thing is, look at Big Pharma. Look at colleges. I mean, their businesses and stuff. They're like pushing agendas, like their own agendas, because they want to be right, because they're trying to make a profit. 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 PROFH or PH. Pardon me. PROPHET. Profit. Prophesize. Right? Anyways.
Nelson is sure it does.
Human consciousness interacts with the physical world in the form of a random event generator in such ways to change the output. And on 9/11, when the first plane hit, I think that was 8:45 in the morning, the data started changing in an unmistakable way about between 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning.
In the case of the September 11th World Trade Center attacks in New York, the REGs measured a warning spike 4 hours in advance of the first plane strike and continued measuring the ensuing events and public reactions. Deep feelings of compassion enveloped the world, and a 50-hour trend ensued in the data, reflecting the profound effects of the event itself. The Global Consciousness Network has scientific data showing similar responses to many world events such as Earth Day and World Healing events. Major earthquakes reflect in the data hours in advance of the actual earthquakes, showing that the global consciousness field is not limited to what human beings directly perceive.
These generators, random event generators, we usually just call them REGs, sometimes RNGs, for random number generators. They're a very standard tool in the armamentarium of psychic researchers. They do a good job. They present a system that's easy to understand, and one in which it's relatively easy to see something that shouldn't be there. That is, if consciousness changes the way the world is, these random event generators constitute a very sensitive way of asking that question. Does my intention to get high numbers result in high numbers? And the answer over years and years of experimentation is that it does. It won't be enough to win at the casinos if they have too big an advantage, but it's real.
When the O.J. Simpson trial was going on, lots of people were watching television because of the courtroom drama that was unfolding. And Radin intuited that there must be a lot of intention going on at the time when the courtroom drama is strong. So he hired a bunch of psychologists who kept track of the courtroom drama. At the same time, Radin was studying the behavior of random number generators. But then Radin found that whenever the intentions were strong in the courtroom, that's when the deviation of these random number generators from randomness becomes very high.
So this is an unusual point in human history, I think, in that people knew far in advance that within a fraction of a second, either saying the words guilty or not guilty, something of very high interest would occur, which would attract hundreds of millions of people live. So I figured, okay, we have to do this as an experiment then. I had 3 random number generators running in my lab, and I asked a colleague to run a generator in Amsterdam and another in Princeton. So we ran the generators, afterwards evaluated the results, and sure enough, we saw a spike with odds of 1,000 to 1 actually 2 places. One was when the camera switched from outside the courthouse to inside the chambers. There was like a huge rise of attention, which was reflected in the random generators. And then at the moment that the verdict was read, there was this large spike of coherence in all 5 generators at once. So this was taking an idea that we had seen in the laboratory and scaling it up to the world at large, and it appeared to work.
This leads naturally to wonder Are people affecting the world of reality that they see? You betcha they are. Every single one of us affects the reality that we see, even if we try to hide from that and play victim. We all are doing it.
Modern materialism strips people of the need to feel responsible. And often enough, so does religion. But I think if you take quantum mechanics seriously enough, it puts the responsibility squarely in your lap.
In the new view, yes, mathematics can give us something. It gives us the possibilities that all these movements can assume, but it cannot give us the actual experience that I'll be having in my consciousness. I choose that experience. And therefore, literally, I create my own reality. It may sound like a tremendous bombastic claim by some new agey without any understanding of physics whatsoever, but really quantum physics is telling us that.
So this is the human brain as you probably have seen on many occasions, but in actual fact, that's not the real human brain. The human brain is alive, and if you measured it, this is what it would look like. Those flashing patterns you see there are the actual activity of a real brain. We've taken an EEG, quantified it, and we can actually see the activity taking place over the left and right hemispheres. The yellow and the red that you see is effectively what's going on as a person is sitting quietly. There's microstates going on here, being recreated every 20 milliseconds, 50 times a second. There are about 4 basic microstatic patterns, which are the building blocks to consciousness, just like pairs, sets of DNA, or base pairs are the information for the last 3 billion years of genetics. Person's quiet. So the question is, suppose you have had access to information within every other person's brain, and they had access to yours. What would happen? Has it happened? Can it happen? And what would it mean for the future of human societies? No more secrets. And tonight, that's exactly what we're talking about. Suppose you had access to the information of every other brain on this planet. No more secrets. Are we all connected? The answer is yes. We are all immersed in the Earth's magnetic field. The human species is about 7 billion conductive brains, all sharing this field. Think of 7 billion wires, all immersed in the Earth's magnetic field. This field contains enough energy to store the experience of every human being who has ever lived. The easy calculation, just think about that. All the information of every human brain that's ever lived has the potential to be stored in the Earth's magnetic field with lots of energy left over.
With that being said, just think about like how like the internet has been weaponized. There have been good, there have been great freaking algorithms out there. I mean, when YouTube, was freaking YouTube and stuff, like, and the algorithm worked for us. Now it's just pushing agendas and putting us in the boxes instead of expanding our intellects. That's because YouTube, really is more influential than fucking Facebook to me, in certain extents. I don't know, but look, this is going on for a bit. So, Monochrome, Vox Media, Beyond 2015, 0 point volume of that's 4, Left Hemisphere edition. I mean, honestly, like, friggin', if anyone can find volume 2, I believe it is, if anyone can find volume 2 of this, freaking please put a link in the description, and fuck, and give me your Cash App, because I'll send you $20 too, it's bar none, because that's an excellent one, and yeah, I love it, and I'll bootleg it if I need to. Anyways, this is a very important one too, and I mean, really, this is what we're going through. And if you followed in my previous video, like, if you all to this one, if you follow my previous video to this one, freaking, you're a badass, and I appreciate you. Sorry for being so long-winded. I'm just trying to make some points, and I could have done this whole hell of a lot better. I'm sorry. Just want to get it done, right? And I wasn't trying to fuck around with things, but yeah, I love y'all. Be safe, be kind, stay strong. Happy Thanksgiving. That makes me a racist for saying that, and I'm proud of it. And yeah, fuck the government. Like fuck this organized crime. Like, God bless the United States. God bless the world. God bless the good people of this world. And may all the sinners who have put us through unnecessary grief for their indulgent nature, I do not pity your pain. And I look forward to every thumbtack that goes into one's body. Oh man. Anyways, take care, be safe, be kind, stay strong, love y'all.